Three collectors from three different perspectives come together for a weekly show that catches you up on the hobby you love. Hobby news, hobby drama, insider talk, and everything from collecting, investing, and selling. Welcome to Inside the Hobby.
Welcome to Inside the Hobby. I'm Brian with Gray Street Sports Cards, and today is National Cold Cuts Day. And in honor of that, we've got a Ryan Sandberg Pog card from Oscar Mayer.
Hey, I'm Ryan, Mind Cycle Cards. Thank you guys. Thank you, Frank. Thank you, Brian, for having me on as a co-host.
And the Cold Cuts Day worked out pretty well considering all of the "you're fat" comments that we get. So thank you for bringing that to the table, Brian. Much appreciated. Really glad to have this guest with us today. Brian, thank you for being our guest. Thank you. Bad joke. Yay, thank you, Brian. All right. No, just kidding. Mind Cycle is joining us as a co-host. Thank you very much. We got a bunch of cool stuff to cover on this week's Inside the Hobby. We have some breaking news, I guess, kind of, from me and my sources. So we're about to get to those pretty soon here. We also are going to cover the PSA buying SGC. By the time you are watching this, we are sure you've heard about it. We want to talk about why it may be important and what it will do to the hobby. We will also talk about things to look out for when buying sports cards. There's a lot of fake cards and scams out there, and Brian's done some research on it, and Mind Cycle's seen a ton of it in his 90s basketball experience. And speaking of 90s basketball experience, we're going to cover our 90s basketball cards, the vintage era cards for basketball collectors. This is pretty much an all basketball episode. So, sorry to all you soccer fans out there that we have never covered anything on before. But yeah, so we're ready to get started, I guess. So I have some breaking news, and I can't give away my sources clearly, but within Topps and Topps basketball cards, you know, we haven't really seen a whole lot within the last 3 or 4 years. You know, we saw Bowman U, obviously. We saw Finest a couple years back with some vets in suits. We've seen Topps Chrome OTE, Topps Inception OTE, and I'm going to make a little announcement here that has not been announced by Topps, nor has it been announced by OTE. But there will be now future more Topps OTE cards coming again in the future. So is it groundbreaking from like NBA standpoint? Clearly not. But if you are a basketball fan and a fan of Topps basketball, this is some pretty good news, because the first 2 years of Topps Chrome OTE and Topps Inception from last year have been very, very good in my opinion. I have been doing a lot of it. You can see I got 6 boxes of it back right over here unopened that I will get around to at some point. But I have 2 sources that have verified that Topps will be making more OTE cards. So I don't know whether it's more Chrome, whether it's more Inception. It could be something that we have not seen yet. But the fact that this has not been announced by Topps or OTE yet is pretty cool, so I'm going to give myself a little bit of credit for that. I do want to ask you guys. I'm going to ask Ryan, Mind Cycle here. Have you done any of this Topps OTE product? Are you familiar with some of the players? Like, have you done any of it at all? Have you tried it? Do you like it?
I have not, but it looks pretty nice, and I think you have a little bit less parallels to chase, it's looking like. From like regular Topps products, maybe Panini basketball products. Am I right about that, or am I wrong? because I think that in itself makes it pretty interesting.
Well, definitely a lot less than Prism, that's for sure, and probably Optic. I think there's probably about 12 parallels for the base cards.
That's better than 40.
Yeah.
Plus that Prism is
yeah,
up to now,
absolutely.
I think one of them got up to 60 something release.
It's crazy. And I think a lot of them show up. I have like several Topps Chrome searches in my eBay, and I always see those cards. I should just probably get one, shouldn't I? And just check it out. They do look nice.
The cards or the boxes or what do you mean?
Just the cards, yeah. I mean, I have some saved searches that are Topps Chrome specific, and I always see the OTE pop up.
Okay. I mean,
so maybe I'll grab one just to check it out.
I'm not aware of any Denver Nuggets that have cards that are guys from OTE. There was a bunch of guys that were like two-way contracts, and they're in the G League for Mavericks and Bucks and Knicks, and Dominic Barlow with the Spurs. Of course, the Thompson twins for the Rockets and the Pistons. But there is a lot of guys from both years' OTE products that will be first rounders next year. We were talking about it a little bit before the show started. Tyler Smith, Ethan Almanza, Alexandre Sarr is supposed to go number 1 or number 2 in the draft. So that's pretty big. The fact that he's going to come out at number 1 or number 2, and then people are going to realize, wow, he's been in both OTE products, and he's had autos in both OTE products. I think that's going to get people aware and attached at some point and be like, oh, wow, okay, that's cool. Of course, there's always going to be the people who want, stuff in the pro jerseys only, but I love, like, the whole XRCs or PRCs, pre-rookie cards or whatever. I absolutely love them. And plus, I love Chrome. So, Chrome Basketball, pretty amazing.
That's the big thing it's got going for it is it's got the Topps Chrome brand, in my opinion. Just makes it stand out a little bit more just because of that. Yeah.
What we have on screen is the kind of the checklists and the inserts from Cardboard Connection from last year's, which was the second year, 2022-23. So I am excited to see what happens with 2023-24. Brian and I got a chance to go to OTE games here in Phoenix.
Yeah.
We saw
we actually met a collector there that had a printing plate that he had signed from the Denver area. So like he was came down and he flew down for that, and I think some of the Waste Management Open or something is what he said. But he ended up getting the guy to autograph his printing plate that he got when he was there, which was pretty cool.
It was a Leaf printing plate.
Yes, it was a Leaf printing plate that he had. That's and right. I forgot.
It was Ian Jackson. Who is absolutely amazing. He's on the top 100. He was a really good shooter.
We got to see him live playing against the local home team as well. I think in that game. Or was that the second game that he was in?
It might have been the second game, but very, very good player. We got to see 3 guys who were all in the top 100, and I think at least 2 of those guys are McDonald's All-Americans. So we saw Larry Johnson, Nasir Cunningham, and Ian Jackson, and all of those guys are absolute beasts. So the fact that we got to see a game live is pretty cool as well. Brian, I know your experience with the OTE cards has been, besides what I've given you, what you've seen when you were visiting over here, because you've seen my OTE collection. But I mean, I guess it's not really any crazy different than any other, like Topps Chrome baseball that you've done or anything.
Yeah, and that's kind of where like I could easily see this kind of be something that interests me as well, just because of the fact that it's prospecting kind of a little bit. Me being a fan of baseball, I like to do a little prospecting there as well by watching the top 100 MLB prospects. And so the All-American, McDonald's All-American 100 prospects is nothing different. It's just basketball in that kind of sense. So I do think, especially after watching Larry Johnson, like this is a guy that not only will, like, when he gets to the NBA, if everything goes out for him, he's going to be a guy that can win the NBA Slam Dunk champion. Like I've seen, just watching the dude in warm-ups was enough to me be okay, Get a card with that guy dunking, and that's going to be the card I go after.
There's another guy in OTE, Ja'Kai Howard, and he has a chance of being a dunk competition winner as well, because I think he's won the OTE dunk competition the last 2 years.
If he's beating guys like Larry, I want to see that too. 'Cause
yeah,
I literally saw Larry throw the ball from half court off the wall, bounce once to him, and he caught it in air and did an under the leg dunk as he was coming up to it. And I'm just like, high off the wall too. We're not talking like he just bounced it off like right next to him. It was high off the wall, and it was impressive. So that kid's got some hops to him, and just get him in a photo if they could. I don't know if they can do action shots for this. That would be kind of nice to see him do an action shot of him jumping and dunking, because shows off what he can do.
They kind of have action shots. I mean, they're staged, but
yeah,
they do some shots that are photo shoot. At least from the last 2 years, some that are the photo shoot, and then some that are staged, like you'd see with like NBA Premiere stuff. But
yeah, that's kind of what I noticed. There's some photo shoot kind of. At least they're doing dunks though. I mean, man, I don't know if you guys checked out recent Prism, but it's all dribbling. I'd rather buy OTE than
and curtains.
Some Prism. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I don't get it, man. Paying tens of thousands for Wemby. I know it looks to be a great player, but that's the worst card I've ever seen.
Like for a flagship product too, that's just like you want to have them. I mean, I understand. Like, let's face it, Topps has Stadium Club, which is not usually Stadium Club isn't always like the highest end cards of like some of their like base stuff, but Stadium Club is known for its capture shots of in-game moments. Like
great photography,
absolutely,
and full bleed, no borders.
Exactly.
They're great.
That's part of what I love about Stadium Club, and what I love about what Topps uses their licenses with any sport with is that they try to capture the athletes as much as they can. Obviously, if they're going to do like the dribble shots, I like the OTE look a lot better than what Prism did with their dribble shots, because it's like you can tell the kid like they wanted to at least get some of the personality out of him, whatever it was, and any of them. Yes, he's just dribbling the ball and some of these in there, but then the one on the right and that thing scrolling on there, he's clearly going up to do something. A lot better action shot. I personally would be going more for the one on the right, even if it wasn't auto. I'd just go for that kind of a card more than I would on the one on the left. But if it's a prospect I'm chasing, I'm probably going to want all of them anyway. So
very true.
Topps just, I think we're all on the Topps bandwagon, but they do a little better job with their photography and their inserts. The inserts make sense.
The Hurricane inserts, the Superflies are case hits, and they're really cool. And then what's being shown on screen right now, I can't remember what that expose. Those are only in, I want to say like orange to 25, black to 10, and red to 5. I don't even think they have golds. They have no regulars. So those are like super rare. Much more than case hits than at that point. But and then they have some image variations as well in the second year, and then they have anime image variations as well, which is we're kind of seeing pop up on a lot of different companies.
That's kind of cool.
Panini's done it, Leaf's done it, now Chrome's doing it with OTE. I just saw an anime to 5 of a player who's not even expected to be in the NBA draft, and it went for like $40-$50 the other day. So I was pretty surprised by that. Those animes go for quite a bit. I think the anime reds are numbered to 10 actually.
Are they like kabooms or something? They're like the kind of drawing style, or is it something different?
No, they're exactly like the base card, except for instead of like you see a photo of Nasir Cunningham here on the example. And it would be like that, but it would be him in anime drawn form instead. So no background, but just kind of like doing some cool basketball move or something,
But I believe like even the nice thing about those anime cards even is that wasn't it like the stuff that's in the back that's on the card is like resembles the player or something, like it makes sense.
Well, they drew it where it looks like the player, and they only did it for a certain number of players, and they essentially did it for like the top 15 or 10 most well-known or most popular players of the product. There may be, give or take one. You know how the card companies are. They'll put someone random in there too. But but I mean, I know we're straying a little off. The bell went off. Thank you for remembering to do that, Brian. Put the bell and limit me there. But I'm happy to announce it. More Topps OTE is coming. I am a huge fan of OTE. I'm a huge fan of Topps, and I think they do a great job. Everything I've opened and everything I own so far has been great shape. Now I'm not worrying about very many issues with printing or miscuts or printing lines or whatever, which is strange considering you'd think they're both coming from the same printer, both from Panini and Topps, but yet the quality control from what I've seen has been fantastic from both years, as well as both years of McDonald's All-American as well. Because if we're going to talk Topps Chrome basketball, that we know there's going to be another Topps Chrome All-American basketball, I'm pretty sure, because the second year that they released, which is this year with Bronny James, the most recent boxes, they're going for about a $120 a box. That is so late because that happened so long ago, and now they're already talking about the new McDonald's All-American, and of course they'll do like a Topps photo shoot. So we can kind of expect more of that, probably, not guaranteed. But according to my two sources, we are going to see more Topps Chrome or Topps OTE. So I'm excited, and may not have been like the most crazy of announcements for breaking news, but it is still technically breaking news. So I'm glad to have shared that. So next up, interesting.
Yes, very interesting. At this point, I think everybody's kind of heard this. PSA acquires SGC, or collectors, I should say, buys SGC. I think what we'll do kind of is cover a little bit of the facts that are kind of recent. A smaller known YouTuber that does collecting stuff of Junk Wax Hero did a recent video, and he has interviewed Peter, the CEO of SGC, on his channel live, and so he's obviously got some contacts with SGC and things, and he had sources reach out to him about information regarding a little bit more about this in there. So if you haven't seen him or don't know anything about Junk Wax Hero, he does a lot of cool, like, weird finds of, like, cards found in attics and stuff like that. But the reason why he had these sources is because of Peter. And a couple of things that came up was that this doesn't fall under the antitrust laws because the purchase is going to be valued under $100 million. So I took a look at the laws and to find out like what makes an antitrust, like a monopoly and all that, when something is there, because everybody was trying to show some of those screenshots of 78% controlled by PSA, 7% by SGC. So it's like, obviously they control the market. But if you're purchasing something for under $100 million, it actually doesn't flag the antitrust laws of the actual monopoly things, laws that are out there. And since this acquisition isn't going to reach above that threshold, it won't qualify. So that's why we won't see this or hear about it. The other part of it is that this is a push for PSA or collectors to get enough revenue built, basically, so that in the next few years they can go public. What does that mean for SGC? Is that at the moment we know they're going to operate as is, but I think that's kind of where we can start to answer the questions of what does this mean for grading moving forward? What does it mean for SGC? And what does this do to the values of things like SGC cards? Does it change anything? So I guess I'll kind of hand it off to you guys. What do you think, Ryan, of this kind of situation? I know you've had some topics that you shared amongst this. What do you think of this whole scenario?
Well, initial impression was like, man, now collectors has the absolute monopoly on vintage cards. Where do you go to grade vintage cards? You go to PSA, or you go to SGC. I mean, that's traditionally how it's been, right? So I think in that regard, you really do. I'm sorry, I muted myself. You really do have more of a monopoly. Now, how long did they keep SGC and before they move it into PSA, which I think is probably coming on, in the future. I mean, would you guys agree to that? Why would collectors buy up SGC if they already have their top tier grid in PSA? I mean, they say they're going to operate independently. I heard that from Peter when he made his announcement. I could see that for a couple years, potentially, maybe even is 2 years down the road, they consolidate the two. What do y'all think about that?
I think that this is a big opportunity for PSA to make a move that no one is expecting. Now, I'm not sure if they would do this because I feel like maybe even doing this would potentially devalue SGC. But let's say, for an example, obviously, we saw an example in the pandemic when PSA was really busy. The prices went up. They didn't offer the bulk services. It was only, minimum. You were looking at like $55, $60 or something. And that was getting your card back in 9 to 16 months. So, sure, they aren't backlogged like that anymore. But PSA did mess around with some of the pricing structure of what the costs of the cards would be to get graded in that scenario. I think this would be a great opportunity, and I'm not saying that this is necessarily a good idea for consumers, but this would be a good idea for PSA is, okay, yeah, we're raising prices permanently now for PSA graded stuff, and we are offering SGC as our somewhat cheaper, individually done project. So where they could do as they said in the announcement and keep them separate, but it would allow them an opportunity to inflate a value and a cost provided to the consumers that they have to pay. They have no choice because PSA's, the place to go. And it would give them an excuse to charge more for PSA and then offer SGC as more of a budget-related solution. Now, once again, I'm not sure if they would even consider doing this because at that point, then maybe it kind of like devalues what SGC has already done in the past. And I'm not sure that they would want to do that because if a company is worth X amount of money, anything you do to devalue that the company or its products that it puts out, then you're essentially taking money away from yourself on what a brand is worth. So yeah. I think that would probably be a good idea for them because then it would be a money-making opportunity and still give some level of access for consumers, a little more friendly price. But who knows? I don't think it would be a good idea to eliminate SGC at all, like completely. But,
yeah, I heard the argument somebody make, you can have a beer company that just kind of sucks up other beer companies within theirs, right? And people still buy it because it's just another brand of beer that they might like. And that functions and it goes for years with the same brands that people loved, so that could potentially be the case. It just seems, in my opinion, just more of a get rid of the competition type move than anything else. And we've seen that in the past with collectors as well, buying up other companies. So, could they keep it separate? Should they? Probably. That would be better for the collector, I think, in the long run. But it looks more like a power move to capture 100% of the vintage market instead of, what did they have before? Probably 90%. I don't know. I'm just guessing here, but.
Yeah, you look at what this past year meant for SGC, I feel like, because me coming back into the hobby, seeing what Peter did, basically, his biggest thing was about the customer service for SGC, the turnaround times, and then also trying to get the vintage market kind of captured, but also jumping more into modern with those top deals that he did. And you look at some of the biggest cards that sold in this last year, of like how much they sold for and what grade they were. Some of the top vintage cards in baseball that sold in this last year, I think 2 or 3 of the big name cards were SGC slabs. And so that's kind of what I was almost like, is like, hey, did PSA get mad because the 3 big cards of the year that sold for the most were not in PSA slabs, and they decided, well, we're not going to have that happen anymore,
This is more Monopoly talk. Like, it seemed we talked a lot about monopolies over the last 2 episodes. Mm-hmm. We talked about Topps not allowing Brady to sign at Tyson Beck events and what the exclusivity of the hobby means. And we also compared it to the video game industry with what EA has done with Madden and 2K has done with basketball. And there's, the show has done with baseball, and how, like, those are the only products that you can buy. Now it just seems like it's more of the same, which is, is disappointing. But this is the world that we live in 2024. It's no longer the glory days when we all grew up in the 90s, and there's millions of companies.
I think you made a point in the last video, Frank, where you talked about, like, if you're the commissioner of a league, having only one source to go after to, like, talk to about it makes it a hell of a lot easier than 20 or 30. I understand that from some point, but, like, when you start to see the players get disappointed in the products that they're in, we're seeing it in video games now where players are coming out going, Madden is trash, I don't even want to be in it anymore. And until we start to see all the players band together, or all the people like kind of band together, like, these things don't change. And that would be the same thing happening with cards. Like, if all the players go, my card looks like crap in, this product, I'm not going to be in it anymore. You can't have a card of me. And it's someone like, LeBron James or Steph Curry, some guy that is that big, and then it trickles down. That's kind of like the only other way that this could possibly happen. But do some of them even care, do you think?
I'm concerned on it from, like, the card brand standpoint, where eventually Fanatics is going to own everything. But we luckily have not seen Fanatics take the same nosedive from a monopolistic standpoint exclusivity as we have, like, Panini. So don't get me wrong, they're not error free, as we all see and we report on and we see in the general hobby news. But I feel like they have done it a little better than what Panini's done. Monopoly's still a monopoly. It sucks. I feel it's probably a lot different with the card side than it is with, like, the grading companies. But if everything is being, I'm more interested in the answer to or a question that I would like answered is more along the lines of, sure, we have the monopolization of, the cards, and now the grading companies. Like, what else is going to happen? Is BCW going to buy Ultra Pro, and then we have to buy our supplies there, and then, like, top loaders, and, Cardboard Gold is going to get bought out, and then we're going to have to buy, like, more expensive card savers. Like, where does this go? And how, more along the lines of, like, how is it going to affect us as collectors in 10 years? Because we don't know what the Fanatics monopoly is going to bring. We don't know what the SGC PSA is going to bring, but we know it's only going to get worse. We've already seen it in other industries. We've seen it with the video games. We've seen it with books, with bookstores, with Amazon. We've seen it with big box retailer stores. We've seen the decline of Sears and JCPenney and Macy's and malls, and, like, all the way across the board. We've seen everybody just buys everything from, like, an Amazon now. So what is the collector space going to look like in 10 years? So with PSA buying SGC, I feel like it's just another step on the ladder to one company owning everything. And if we want any products, any cards, any memorabilia, it's just, I don't know, it's awkward. And
it's a big concern, because competition is what makes interesting products at the end of the day. And I don't do a lot of grading, so I don't have a huge stake in PSA or SGC or any of the others. Don't really care that much. But I think, it's the consolidation of product does promote laziness in a way. I think you guys would probably agree with that in some form or another. You saw Panini get really lazy in the past couple of years. They really have. It's the quality of the cards have gone down. The quality of almost one of my favorite parts of cards is the photography. That's gone downhill. So all these acquisitions, is that just going to give, a more lackluster product? It kind of seems like in the past it has. So that's my main worry about it,
Yeah, competition breeds innovation and competitive pricing. So without competitive pricing, everyone gets hosed, and without innovation, we can look at the card side, and we were discussing this all the way back, I think, in episode 1. This may even be an anti-monopoly show by now at this point. But we were discussing how there's no innovation in cards anymore and how we don't see anything new. We haven't seen anything new since the 90s. Jersey cards, autographs, holograms. Yeah. Brian thought of music cards or not music cards, but like audio cards, and like even Power Deck Audio tried it back in the day, with Upper Deck, and we are seeing some innovation with wild cards thumbograph, but that's a perfect example of innovation not being made, and that's why we haven't seen anything new. Same thing with the video games, same thing with everything. So yeah, I don't know, anti-monopoly talk as usual on Inside the Hobby. I don't think that's necessarily a hot take.
No, I don't think it's a hot take much either, but obviously I think everybody else that's talking hobby has been covering it, which I think that was why we kind of wanted to go into it. And then hearing some of those facts that we had just had, interesting conversation to have, I think, amongst it. But I don't know, anything else that we want to add about this, or are we ready to move on to the next topic?
Next topic.
All right.
Monopolization sucks. All right.
So, for the next topic here, we just kind of have a little bit of going over some things that have been recently found when looking at certain topics of cards on eBay. So things to look out for when buying cards, fake cards, scams, things like that have been out there. As you can kind of see on the screen there, we're talking about one right there that is a Sean Kemp. That's the first one that kind of had steered me down a little bit of this. Me being a Kemp collector, seeing this card pop up, and the conversations of a thread talking about it here that also mentioned it, where it's an autographics card. The autograph on the card is real. It is a Kemp autograph, but the card that was for sale at the first top part, the serial number was the problem of it. And the reason being is that the autographics set there, the serial numbers to 50, the player was putting the actual 1 of 50, 2 of 50, he would put that on the card as well in his writing. There's also a pressed-in stamp of certification on those 50 cards that he does that with. And the one that was for sale in auction there was numbered 4 of 50, which when he was on the Cavs, that's Sean Kemp's jersey number. So just so happens to be jersey number, Kemp card on that.
Just so happens.
Just so happens, right. Exactly. And I did not hear from the seller or anything on this, if they knew anything about it. So we're not talking about the seller in this case. We don't know if they actually knew or if they just simply bought this card in a collection or selling it because it's on an autograph card. We don't know if they know anything about that. But the person that's buying this card likely going to probably try to send it in, do anything. If they get it graded, there's going to be something that should come back on this card saying this is not an authentic serial numbered one, because that's not Kemp's handwriting. When you look at cards where Kemp writes the numbers, he has more of a slant to the numbers. This was more a straight up and down, and also smaller print font of the numbers. So just something like that to spot and look out for when you're looking at cards of his.
So I'm not sure if they wrote the serial numbers or if it was, it was Flair writing them or not. Did you come across info that they actually wrote it themselves, or?
I mean, to me, it looks like I didn't see whether or not he wrote it on there, but like when you look at Kemp's writing, it was always at this certain slant, and the numbers are like mimicking his writing on it. I haven't looked at some other ones on there, but like when I looked at his that all went through on the numbered one on there, like some of the guys in the other thread that I read said that this was written by the player, so I don't know if they knew or not.
I don't know if that's the case. I used to own a Century Marks Dikembe Mutombo, and I really don't think that was Dikembe Mutombo's hand number.
Yeah.
Like
I kind of think that the company did the numbering, right?
Yeah. Like someone from Flair Skybox.
Yeah, and now those autographics, those are the Century Marks, of course. They're a different foil. the prime way to determine if they're fake is actually the serial number stamp. Or I'm sorry, not the serial number, but
foil.
the stamp.
Yeah.
So
wait, there's a difference on century marks?
Yeah,
Stamp?
there is. Yeah. So the regular autographics actually didn't have numbering. It's the numbering came into play when they had different foil. And so that year that we were looking at, I think it was 99 or something like that. It passed a minute ago. But yeah, mainly what you want to look for on those is it stamped. I've seen them in slabs and they don't catch when they're stamped. So, I mean, most of the time they do. But yeah, raw, I think, your general rule of thumb for trying to find fake 90s cards is just, are they raw? You got to be real careful, especially if you're paying big bucks. Because what happened was a lot of these cards got sold during the bankruptcy. Are you guys familiar with like the Fleer bankruptcy from back in the day? Mm-hmm. And they got into the market essentially, or out in the wild, whatever you want to call it. And they were legit signed cards, but they didn't come out of a pack. And so some of the elements didn't get finished on them. So the stamp may have not gotten stamped on it, or it could be that the serial number wasn't there. So, come 20 years later or whatever it is, 30, well, yeah, probably 30 at this point, right? I'm getting too old. But yeah, they basically, took that card and said, oh, if I put the jersey number on here, that's going to be pretty appealing to somebody, right? And you're right, maybe that seller didn't do it, but somebody else he may have bought it. And you're getting trash, essentially. I mean, in my opinion, it's worth something, right? But I would not pay anywhere near a pack pool card for stuff like that.
Yeah,
exactly. But of course the sellers aren't going to say anything. They're going to go to a consigner, and then people like Wax Museum or Mind Cycle here or someone else in the hobby is going to notice, and then they're going to hit up the consigners and say this is not right, and they're not going to release who it is, and then they're just going to go to another consigner. If you're really looking to spend, because these aren't cheap cards either. If you're really looking to spend, $400 to $700 on some type of Grail card like this, you're gonna have to do your research in advance and find out every little detail. And if you don't, sure, does it suck? Yes. Is it your fault? No. But there is a certain level of responsibility you have when you buy any product. It doesn't matter what it is. That's a high value product, to make sure that you're getting what you're paying for. So And as you showed in the slide there, good place to go to a forum. I mean, you showed the hobby boards there. I wanted to mention
there's going to be some guys in there that will know. I'm not a big fan of Blowout anymore. We won't go into that in a lot of detail, but you could go to Blowout as well. There's a lot of knowledgeable people over there. But really, just seeking the advice of somebody that maybe owns the card is a really good way to just check, hey, you know what? I'm going to spend a lot of money on this. Can you just help me out? And most people that are big 90s collectors and know about that stuff are fully willing to help you out. Take a look at it, give you some suggestions on what to check. We also showed, I think it's probably a little further down in this reel here that you have, Frank, but there's the Bowman's Best autographs, and actually we found those.
You can skip to them.
Yeah, that was, I think they're being co-signed with.
Those were from Sheets, right?
Yeah, well, they were probably bankruptcy cards, right? And then somebody just added an autograph. Now a lot of them
bankruptcy
are being sold
cards.
DC
Topps
Sports
bankruptcies?
Yeah,
because they're Bowman's Best.
They're likely Backdoor. Well, yeah, you're right. They're not bankruptcy because obviously Topps didn't go bankrupt.
Oh, you're thinking like Fleer Skybox in your head. It's all good, but
yeah, I am. Yeah, but these ones were probably Backdoor. Probably came out, just unsigned or something like that, right? I did actually in this thread here mention it as well, but I contacted DC Sports 87 really prompt to get back with me. They were actually pretty nice about it, and they did pull most of those. Now, unfortunately, I saw them pop back up with some other seller, but It's really hard to catch too, because actually one of my good buddies pointed out a Chauncey Billups, because he's a big Chauncey Billups collector. He's like, this doesn't look right, and then I went and checked it out, and they had several of those. So it's a bit scary, you got to do your homework on it. Yeah.
And if it seems too good to be true, it probably is.
Yeah, and probably the last thing I'll mention, just to throw it out there, is that there is a lot of these high value ones, especially your PMGs, your rubies, that are being faked from the ground up. They're actually being completely made from scratch with the serial number added, and it's really hard to catch them.
That is wild.
There's
Somewhere
some guys that are very smart about it. 90s Wax on Instagram. What's his? I think he's Roger Maris on the Blowout forums. He will tell you whether or not it is. So if you want to know, he's not going to reveal how he knows it, because we don't want those people to get any better at it. But you can always hit up me. I could direct it to him. He's a lot more knowledgeable on that stuff than me. But yeah, they're built from the ground up, and they've been caught in BGS and PSA slabs. So it's a bit scary out there. Yeah,
I've heard it's from. There's a guy that was on Carlson Cards podcast a while back when he goes by Waldorf Sports, and he's the one that bought the Sean Kemp green PMG. So that's why I watched a little bit of that episode with him, and he talked about how a lot of PMG buyers have deferred a little bit more towards PSA due to the fact that the majority of those fakes that you're talking about are in BGS. There are a few in PSA, but PSA's gotten better at least catching it. Yeah, not as many, but BGS, there's like an alarming amount of them that are out there.
Yeah, and they'll double down on it too. I've seen it.
Yeah.
Somebody will call it out.
BGS does?
Oh yeah, like a lot of these PWCC auctions actually, where they get called out, because if you go on Blowout forums, there's a 90s fake serial number / just fake 90s cards thread, and they'll call them out. Somebody will contact PWCC. They go back to Beckett and say, hey, is this card legit? Yeah. Beckett will actually double down and say, no, it's fine, and then they'll resell it, and it's fake, and it's sad, because I don't even know if they look at it, to be honest, and really dig into it.
Didn't that happen somewhat recently with something where they sent like a letter that said, we certified that this is
it's
correct?
Happened.
What was that with a PMG, or was it with something else, like a baseball card? I don't remember offhand.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know, man. It's happened so much with PWCC. I could go on for hours about how shady that company is. But there's been multiple instances where they're straight fake cards, like high value cards too, like Jordan rubies and stuff like that, that are straight fake. And they go to BGS, and BGS just backs them up, and then they sell it, and then who knows where it goes from there. It'll pop back up in a couple of years or something, and somebody else will buy it. It's just, that's why I personally don't buy any cards that are over $200 anymore, because I don't want to even chance it. I'm a low-end collector nowadays. I already have all my PMGs. I bought them back when they were $50 cards.
Nice. Yep. Yeah. Do you have all the Nuggets PMGs from the first 2 years?
I have.
Or wait,
all
there was the
reds.
regular and then the championship.
I wish I had greens, but
Oh well.
You had the regular Metal Universe, which had of course the red and the greens. To be honest, they're not my favorite anyway. I really like the championship PMGs, and I do have them all actually.
Nice.
The ones that I don't have that I'm still chasing, it's 2 cards off, is the rubies, the 97 rubies. I love those, but prices, man, I'm good to wait another 5 years and try to pick them up again for $200 ish or whatever.
Rubies from what, 96, 97 or 97, 98 or
97, 98.
Okay.
Yeah, there was just more I think you had in championship and the regular Metal Universe. There's only 3 Nuggets players, so that wasn't that difficult. I finished that off years ago. Of course, not greens. I always joke I've got the base cards at the top of my binder. Then you got the reds, and then I got the space for the green. With 3 other pockets. That's what I tell people. That's my space for the greens.
You tell yourself that someday you might fill those in, but realistically, it probably won't happen.
No, not for the prices those things are going for nowadays.
The boxes alone, like I don't even remember. Like I looked up a box one time and I just remember seeing a very large number and going, "Oh, that's why I'm not going to buy one of those either." If one, like people selling those on eBay as and of course you don't even know if that's another thing to look for, is if it's a resealed box or anything like that too. You never know. Now people are clever with that.
I don't even know anything about that, but yeah, you see those all the opening the G.I. Joe packs or whatever.
Well, it seems like this is a very good transition into the next topic on 90s cards and our 90s basketball cards, similar to the people's fondness of the vintage era cards for that you'd see in baseball and football collectors. It seems like 90s cards have a very, very large fan base in basketball in comparison to other sports. And us three, have a lot of experience with collecting 90s basketball cards and in all of their glory. And so I thought that was a good topic discussion. Ryan, what do you think? Do you think what do you think about 90s basketball cards, the fan base behind them, and if you would consider them like the vintage era for?
Well, to me, it's not vintage, but I think anybody in their 20s, I guess there's an argument to say that it is vintage, right? Because to them, that is vintage. That's,
vintage is a whole. What is considered vintage is a whole nother discussion.
Yeah.
Most people would say pre-82, but I'm not saying like those cards are vintage. I'm saying I think like this was intended to be a question where we all know how hardcore like baseball and football collectors can be when it comes to vintage baseball and vintage football and stuff like that. Like there's huge fan bases behind them. You can go to shows and there will be 4 or 5 tables just dedicated to nothing but vintage. I don't know if we're on that same level right now with 90s basketball, but
I don't see a lot of it out at shows, to be honest. I mean, you see the bargain bin $5 boxes where you can sometimes pull something decent, but actual good, low serial numbered or just serial numbered in general 90s cards, I don't see a whole ton at shows, and that just makes me think that people are hoarding them for now. Which has always kind of been the case, to be honest. Sometimes you gotta almost rip away the stuff from guys to get it into your collection, because they're so attached to it. That's the way I am. I don't sell a lot of stuff, but yeah, it really is. It's a hot commodity for us three. Being our age group.
What makes those cards so special? I think that's a good question.
Yeah. Yeah, I really think that it's just the time, for me personally, it's just the time that I was most excited about cards. Starting out in cards was that 90s era with basketball. You had even kind of beginning with Shaq coming into the league in like 92, right? You started having a lot of inserts, a lot of subsets. And this is prior to serial numbering. I just thought the cards looked cool, Like, I remember when Flair first came out and you're like, wow, this is a premium product right here, And nowadays we look at it, they're dollar cards, right? But back then,
I was blown away in 94. 94, 95, we got Flair, we got Emotion, and we got Topps Embossed.
Yeah.
And to me, those products were like, they were on another level. Like Topps Embossed maybe didn't have like the same necessarily like the same insert checklist, and clearly Emotion had. I don't actually, now that I think of it, none of them really had an amazing insert checklist that first year in like 94, 95. I feel like we didn't start getting the better inserts until just like the other companies and make and models, but like around 96, 97 is when all that kind of started. But that was a huge turning point, was 94, 95, in my opinion.
Well, think about Finest, right? The first refractors, 93 Finest.
93, 94, yeah.
No one ever seen that stuff before, and they're just kind of amazed that you could have this real shiny refractory card. Like, we've seen foil, but we hadn't seen it at that level, and it was just something new. And then we're still doing that nowadays, and people are going crazy over that stuff, right? All the refractor cards, or the prism as they call it now. So.
I mean, yeah, I think it was also for me, there was the thickness of the cards as well. The fact that they got a little bit more away from that paper base, which was like a standard size of cards. Like Flair, of course, had that thick card stock.
Yeah.
Topps Finest, of course, had that different card make. That's why it kind of started to curve a little bit right off the bat of that. It's kind of took you back to like, 80s baseball would curve and it would go the opposite direction. It was more kind of like a curve if they were like laying flat, but this was more, going across the short part of the card. But either way, like the inserts, the players, I think that is where this could be the post-war era that, you think of baseball, they look at post-war, everything after 45, 46, all the players at that time meant something major to all baseball collectors. And then a lot of those collectors, when they got older and could afford to buy cards, remember putting those cards in bikes and bike spokes and like destroying Mickey Mantles and stuff like that. And then they wanted to get those cards back and they couldn't because there wasn't many left. This, I feel like, is going to be that for basketball, just because we were all kids as that. And I remember, like, wasn't it the top 50 players when they came out with that list somewhere in the 50-year celebration?
96, 97.
Yeah.
And I just remember looking at that list going, man, there's a lot of current players on this list.
Yeah.
More so than the guys from the past. And yes, not trying to take anything away from the past players of, Bill Russell. Those guys are all-time greats that did amazing things, but that Jordan era, like 90s to early 2000s, like, we know if Vince Carter, Sean Kemp, Michael Jordan, Shaq were still playing in today's game, dunking on guys the way they did, they'd get 5-game suspensions, and they'd be ejected from games. And those cards capture a lot of those moments of those players that, you don't get that kind of, like, creativity in the inserts and the photos and everything from that time period. And yes, it takes us to our childhood, which I think is exactly what baseball collectors did with the post-war cards. Is they remember being a kid with those cards. We remember being a kid with these cards. But also,
Absolutely.
You could be like me, who was a guy that was in the Midwest, that I didn't get exposed to all the high-end stuff. I was retail, and rookie roll call or something like that was like those the fanciest thing.
I feel like both of your answers were very much based upon players and nostalgia.
Yeah.
For the most part. But I think maybe we kind of take it for granted, but the level of innovation back here is mind-blowing. Because so even if you compare, like Brian, you just said back then we had the inserts. We don't really have, pardon me, we don't really have, like, inserts like we did back then. Sure, companies will put out case hits. You got the Downtowns, the Kabooms, the Superfly and Topps Chrome OTEs. You do have some things like that. But for the most part, everything is focused on serially numbered base parallels, which... I'm guilty. I am 100% guilty. I love color parallels, and I know that's one big thing that a lot of like old schoolers will bitch about when it comes to current day cards when they remember their vintage fondly. But something that there was innovation back in these cards. It was the first jersey cards from Upper Deck. It was the first kind of, like, sure, we had autographs, we had autographs in everything, Star Picks, Fleer, you could get Scottie Pippen autos and Fleer, and, rookie autos and Star Picks and things like that. But, there were autos and products, but I feel like autographics took it to the next level. It was autographics, you could get them in multiple Fleer Skybox products, and they all had the same base, but you could only get, like, certain players from certain products. I felt like that took it to the next level. Ryan, you mentioned refractors. That was obviously huge for the hobby. Embossed cards have not been mentioned. I brought up Tops embossed from 94, 95, but I mean generally embossed, like with the popping out, and you could feel it. That was innovation. When we look at the card examples scrolling over here, we have things like the Fast Track insert from Z-Force that actually had like fuzz. It was like the fast and the track are like fuzzy. Like you can feel it. It's the coolest thing.
I do remember those.
So there was the things that Arena Designs was doing for Flair and Skybox as well. We saw an example of the titanium insert. I feel like that is the biggest thing that we're missing as a whole in the industry, even today. Topps may put out some nice inserts every once in a while. Panini may have some cool inserts every once in a while, but I don't feel that there's nothing that's really mind-blowing that we haven't seen before, because I feel like the 90s did it already, and it did it better. Yeah. So...
And I'll add in this as well, is like with serial numbered cards, is one of the things I was going to kind of talk about, is that, obviously when I was collecting as a kid, I pulled a lot of retail. That was pretty much all I had access to. I didn't have card shops or anything like that around to go to, or even card shows, but I was unaware there were serial numbered cards from the 90s that, like, whether it was like 5,000 prints or whatever it was going on, never landed one, because in retail, of course, your odds of getting one of those was like slim and none that you would hit it. And then even in today's card collecting day, like, of course, we know serial numbered is part of every single set that comes out now, and how many of them are serial numbered, where, like, you look at the values of what the 90s serial numbered cards hold up to compared to what modern is, where the modern stuff, when it first comes out and it's some hot rookie worth a ton of money right off the bat, but then 5 years down the road when he's no longer in the league, is worth less than a quarter. It's like okay, it's just another card with a number printed on it. It doesn't mean anything. Where you look at 90s cards of some of these guys, and you'll be like, here's a Keith Van Horn PMG, or here's a Keith Van Horn Rubies. He's not a Hall of Famer. He's not someone that we're like talking about like going to be a future. He was a good prospect, came out for the Nets, played for a few years, and his cards still in a graded slab today are selling 3, 4, 5K if they're one of those kind of cards, just because of the fact that they were actually limited. They weren't serial numbered, and then there's 8,500 numbers to 500 in that same set. It was just one set to 500, 1 to 100, and they kind of really kept it minimal at that, to where they were rare cards. And in collecting, scarcity means everything. And when you can have a rare card and it not having like 300 other kind of parallels of it, like, you can feel like you have something that's a piece of history of that time, versus now you're like, oh, it's numbered to 299. Like, yeah, there's 3 other parallels that are numbered to 299. So which one do you want?
You have a card out of 50, it's one parallel. That's it. Card out of 100, one parallel. You don't have 49 parallels to choose.
Exactly.
We're up to now.
Yeah, it's one of those things I wish that the current era would learn the lesson of, and like, not knocking on the rainbow part of it at all, but it's like, maybe take that rainbow aspect and remove some of the serial number from current product of today, and only have it on certain high echelon ones that maybe collectors will go for, so that way serial numbers are really only printed on a few, and then the rest are just there for people that want multicolored cards.
I am going to take a contrasting opinion from you, Brian. I'm going to say that I'm okay with them pumping out the 40 whatever parallels, because then there's plenty of people out there who really like those rainbows. I think in order for card companies now to make the same impact as we had in the 90s, I don't think that requires them taking a factor away. I feel that instead they should just focus on innovation, putting out a product that is different, that is new, something that we haven't seen before, or at least make some effort into some inserts. Hire more designers. Talk to more, paper printing, process companies, etc. Like, we've seen superfractors are great. We've seen those. We know what the gold circle foil. Okay, we get it. Like, but what about all the great designs from something like Season's Best that Topps put out? You know, there was 4 to 6 different designs for a 40 card Season's Best set, and they all had their own styles and flow and differences. And like, I feel like that if we had something like that and then that had parallels on top of it, that would satisfy everybody. But I feel like we just don't get that very often anymore. So yes, you could take down the number of parallels. That would probably make people feel like their cards are more valuable, or they are more valuable, because people who want that type of product and design can only get it in limited supply. But I also feel like they should just focus better on making good design from the start, because I don't see good design from this current day product. It's the same stuff every single year, year after year. I'm not seeing anything new. Like, even I was talking with somebody about this the other day too. We were even talking about it with Nicole in a previous episode. When you look at all the prisms looks exactly the same year to year. In every single sport, it's exactly the same. It's the same way in almost every product that Panini puts out. It's the same design for every sport that they have every single year. Like, it's the same, period. The only people that used to do that back in the day was you'd see it for like the flagship brands. You'd see it for Topps, or you'd see it maybe not as early as something like 96. I don't think they started using the same designs until 2006 with the 4 dots up at the top. Maybe I don't think they did it in 2005. But I mean, they did it in some cases further back as well. If you look at like even 92, 93 Topps, they all had the same design. But point being is, it wasn't just the same basic thing across all products. There may have been one product or maybe 2 products that had the same design across sports, but they had they had creativity. They let their artists and the people that they hire to create designs, they let them go at it and do something new and create something fun and create something original. And I just don't see that anymore. Yeah. It's just maybe an insert or 2 that's kind of cool. And other than that, it's just focused on autos and base color.
I mean, like, even for some of the low-end retail stuff from back in the 90s, you think about it. Meltdown. Like, if you were a kid getting into the hobby and let's say you just bought, you buy some old guy's collection at a garage sale or whatever, and it's all 90s stuff in there. You don't know anything about the players. At least when you're going through that, if that guy had, like, sets or inserts of everything from that area, whether it's low-end retail or that, you're going to get a lot of history of it. Like, part of what these cards did back in the day was pair together guys that made sense in one insert set. They didn't always add up to a lot of value. Like, there was always a Tower of Power set that was out there, and
remember the Tower of Powers that like flapped up? I think it was 97, 98, and it was 2 cards. Yeah, and it flapped. There was the cards like you could pull a card out of a card as well. There was multiple ones like that.
There was
innovation.
But then
I want innovation.
Yeah, exactly. And then pairing guys together, like the Rebound Kings set would be out there, and it was a super low end set that nowadays you could put together every Rebound King set for inserts for probably less than $20. Other than you have to buy Shaq in each one. That's about it. Everybody else is less than a penny. But those Rebound King sets tell you the 10 best rebounders in the NBA of each of those years. Some of the names you'll know, some of the names you won't know. Like, you'll see guys on there that, like, Charles Oakley is a name that pops up there. He's in just about every one of them, but you don't know that player unless you're getting those cards and those inserts and know about them. So it's like almost like a history lesson taught with it, versus like where you see modern inserts, like when you have hidden talents of just random 10 people that you grabbed in the sport that you're doing, and it tells the hidden talent of that guy. there's no correlation to it, and also the players don't have anything that correlates together as to why, other than you grab some random fact of them. So,
well, if we want to talk about backs of cards from the 90s and now, that's a whole nother topic. Backs of cards now are ass. They are ass. They're straight ass, to quote someone from our last episode.
In of itself.
But like, man, the backs of cards back in the day were so good. Sometimes they would list, career stats. They'd have a blurb, the weight, the height, all of that. Now it's like, oh, here's a really cool card on the front. What's on the back? Maybe the team logo, the make, model, brand logo, and then maybe like a very, very small 2-sentence blurb and a Panini logo slapped. It's awful. Yeah. So I feel like, to your point, Brian, if you're a kid and you go to some yard sale and you were to pick up, put yourself in the shoes of like a 9-year-old or a 10-year-old right now who goes to some yard sale and for $5 gets a box of 90s cards. Maybe they're not worth very much. Maybe they're, the non-Hall of Fame lowest bargain budget, but they get like Boss and Fast Track and like random stuff like that. They're going to look at those and going to be, wow, these are really cool. These are neat. There are things on here that it makes me look at it from different angles. Like, there's stuff to read on the back. And then that same kid goes to the store and goes to Walmart and gets 2 or 3 blaster boxes. And what are they going to pull out of 2023 and 2024 products is not even going to compare to these 20-cent, 10-cent cards that is in this 90s box. And it's not just like me speaking that way from nostalgia because I love these cards, but I'm talking from a scale of innovation. We don't see any embossing at all anymore, do we? Whatever happened with that?
I think it's probably one of those things that cost too much to print it with, like just like holograms and stuff like that. The cost of printing that stuff probably costs way too much because of the fact that you have to press something into the cards, like, to make that happen.
Yeah, but they're charging $450 a box. Well, How are they not able to provide me technology that was state-of-the-art 30 years ago? Where are my holograms?
You brought up a good point a while back, Frank, is actually the different, card production techniques that, like, Arena Design and others did. They don't do that anymore, man. They go the cheapest route possible. If you guys have seen, like, the new Metal Universe stuff, and Arena Design actually did the design work for it, but they didn't have the print technology. So you look at it like a red PMG, it's completely flat, and it just defeats the whole purpose. Because those old metal sets, or the Metal Universe and all that, they had that embossing. So if you look at some of the even you can
feel them. They have like bumps and stuff.
Yeah,
it's amazing.
Yeah, and it's just missing from that. And I think I have one of them maybe, and you could tell that it's like some of even the inserts that they did. I think maybe they redid the Jambalaya stuff or whatever.
And the exceptional, the exceptional.
Yeah, a lot of what they did back in the 90s was actually multiple layers. And they don't do that anymore because of cost. And it's just because, how many can we pump out as quickly as possible? So they don't have that actual, like, innovation in the actual printing of these cards anymore. It was some weird, really experimental techniques. So there's Cardboard Chronicles. The guy, Josh, he runs Card Ladder. Is that right? He interviewed Gene from Arena Design and kind of went through some of the techniques that they used back in the day. Like the the credentials, essential credentials that everybody loves, and that kind of stuff. He actually talked to her about that stuff and how they did that printing technology. Is really innovative for the time, but it cost a lot of money, and I think that's why they don't do it anymore. And it's kind of sad, but I just don't see them going back to that kind of stuff. Just from a cost perspective, and it really is too bad. And
I get that, but if the consumer is taking on increased costs, when the innovation is no longer there and they're no longer doing anything new with it, like, what incentive what I feel like it's a big loss overall, because sure, they may take a hit of, they may take a benefit, I should say, of, we don't have to print these cards, and the printing of those cards are expensive, multiple layers, etc. But they don't have that same level of inspiration of collecting from the new collectors. Maybe this is why we are still talking about 90s basketball cards or 90s cards in general. Reasons. This is why we're still talking about it, is because the innovation is there. I feel like we are all passionate towards cards, especially these cards, and remember these cards fondly, but we also still go out of our way, along with thousands and thousands of other people, to go hunt all these old cards down because the new ones suck. And I feel like if these new companies were coming out with this and be like, okay, here's an example. This angers me. It's not exactly basketball related. Well, I guess it is. In 1993 and in 1995, a small company called Action Pact made some basketball cards, and they couldn't afford the NBA license or whatever. They got the Hall of Famers. They did have the NBA logos and stuff on the jerseys, so maybe they did have like NBA license, but according to Players Association, could only do it for Hall of Famers or whatever. In fact, 1995 is one of the very first card sets that had a huge number of pack-pulled Hall of Fame autographs on card that you could get from 1995 Action Pact. But anyone who's picked up an Action Pact card knows it is one piece. It's about so long, and it's folded not once but twice. It's got a tiny little end. It's folded on one end, and then it's got a large end. That's the regular size of the card. Most of them have rounded edges. Some of them, like later 96 on, especially with football, when it was Pinnacle Action Pact, when Pinnacle bought them, they had some more of the sharp corners. But that was innovation, because we had gold plating, and we had seen gold plating, I don't know, as early as maybe 91. I know Topps did 92, sure. But early 90s. I know Action Pact was pumping out not only gold plating, but embossed gold plating as early as their test sets from 1989. So it just blows my mind that here we are with this old tech, and companies that would inspire new collectors, get them engaged. I loved getting a pack of Action Pact cards when I was a kid at my local Safeway, because even though it was only like 6 or 8 cards a pack or whatever it was, instead of the 14 I could get from Topps or Score or whatever, or from Jumbos, I guess, but even though there seemed to be less cards per pack and it was more expensive, being able to hold the cards, see the gold foil, and then run my finger down and see the character popping out of the card. Even Action Pact had Braille cards that were, from the early 90s, where, you could run your finger down and that was the player's name in Braille on the back. And that was mind-blowing too. It's just, Panini has owned the license for Action Pact since when they bought up everything else. When they bought out, I think it was 2009 when they bought Donruss. And by then Donruss Leaf had acquired Pinnacle 3 or 4 years back, I believe. So then that ended up going to Panini. Panini since did jack with the Action Pact license. They've made 2, maybe 3 insert sets for football that are labeled Action Pact, but have 0 attributes of the actual Action Pact cards. And it's just why? You were a fan of Action Pact? Well, we're going to release this Action Pact cards. While we're doing it, we're going to smack you in your face and punch you in the dick, because this has 0 relevance to what you loved. I feel like they did it. Another example. Recently, I don't remember what product, maybe it was an Absolute or something, but they released 1993 Pacific designs, and the regular base insert of this 93 Pacific design, it was completely blank. It was just the player cut out on a completely blank rainbow foil paper. Well, if you go back and you look at 1993 Prisms, they are like mosaics, where the full card has the mosaic style reflection. Well, it was back then, 92 and 93 Pacific Prisms were essentially mosaics in full silver and white, so they shined, and the player did not have a mosaic finish on them, and they were just the normal colors without the finish over top of it. I don't know if it's multi-layer or what, but Panini did these inserts. So they released Burrow and, several other high profile quarterbacks and stuff in this 93, as well as other players, in this 93 Pacific design. But the base card, they could not even put the normal original 93 Prism design on. They felt like, that's going to cost too much money. Let's scale it back even further from what they did. 30-year-old tech, and they won't use it, and they can't use it, and they don't use it right. And it infuriates me. There are new collectors now that cannot get inspired and are not interested in getting into the hobby for the same reasons that we got into it and that we fell in love with it, and that we're still talking about 90s cards to this day. Yeah. And they're not going to be able to get to experience that same level of excitement. Their level of excitement, sure, may be different, may involve the financial aspect and the flipping or, whatever the case is. Yeah. But it's definitely a sense of glory that these younger collectors are not going to be able to experience. And it's also slapping us older collectors in the face when they release these. So yeah. I have a little opinion on that.
Yeah. There's one thing I wanted to finish on. I know we've gone over on this topic, but I did find this on Instagram. I thought this is really a cool thing to check out and see. A guy on Instagram, I don't follow him, but just it came across my feed. The Real 27 guy posted this just a couple days ago from, it looks like Jordan Gilroy posted it, but somebody found at a garage sale, like we were talking about, of where to find these. Somebody found a binder of nothing but 90s basketball. And in this binder is the one, I'm envisioning this person as, my age, going back and being a kid in that age, was the smartest person to ever put together a binder in the history of 90s basketball. I mean, it is Kobe rookies, Platinum rookies, Dunkin' Donuts of the big stars, Jordan, same insert sets. There's jambalayas of Jordan and Kobe in there. Wow. The biggest card that they found in it that was that they wanted to highlight that he does in the video is an Ultimate Victory Kevin Garnett 1/1 gold wave, which I've seen these Ultimate Victory cards before. They're kind of in the late 90s or right around when Mark McGwire did did the home run record, because in baseball they're big chases as well.
I think it was Victory started in either 98-99 or 99-2000, but I think that 1/1 is somewhere between 99-2000 and 2001-2002.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah, this one is a particular 99 of Kevin Garnett, so probably one of his biggest cards you can get if you're a Kevin Garnett collector.
That's wild.
The silvers and the bases were of course you can get bases anywhere. They're in most dollar boxes. Now, the silver, waves that are, numbered, I don't know if they're numbered or not, but either way, the silver waves, you find those $25 for non-Hall of Famers, $50 on up for Hall of Famers. The golds are those things that are grails people can't find, because there was 1/1s back in the day. It was one of the first 1/1s I can remember, and they're gold. And so to see not only a gold in this binder, but it's Kevin Garnett, a Hall of Famer, and literally this binder is if you were a kid to go back to yourself in that day and age and say, hey, I know you really like Sean Kemp, but buy a lot of Kobe and Jordan. Just forget about.
All right, we gotta move on, because we it's great reminiscing about all these 90s cards. I could do it multiple episodes.
I know, we could spend 3 more hours on this topic, I'm sure.
All right, so let's jump into this mailbag. and cover this, and then we will end the show. We got a comment from Douglas Snook, a.k.a. DKLAUF, D-Cloth, I don't know. I have some 8x10 Jordan color photos from 94-95 that a buddy took back then of MJ in the Barons uniform, the Birmingham Barons. They must have been enlarged from negatives, so they are Type 1 photos and are a satin finish like was popular then. Should I get them slabbed? I'm afraid of what PSA will value them at and charge me for slabbing. What do you think? From Doug in KC. Get them slabbed. Just do it. Who cares?
If they're part of your collection,
what's the
too,
worst?
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah,
what's the worst that's going to happen?
Yeah, what are the comps out there for that? They're not going to be able to find any comps. So,
Yeah.
you know, a PSA upcharges you. What are they going to upcharge you based on?
Exactly.
So there's probably no reason not to, honestly, just to have it if that's what you're looking to do.
It doesn't have to be PSA. Like, we all joke about the obnoxiously large slabs from BGS for, like, booklets and stuff, and how you could,
Right.
like, beat somebody over the head with a BGS slab. If somebody broke into your home, you know, you got your gun, you got your BGS slab, okay, you're good to go. But, like, but something like this, 8x10s are very sensitive, so, you know, value aside or charging aside, getting them in some type of slab is probably just the best choice overall. If you're intending to sell, maybe PSA. If you just want them just slabbed as cheap as possible, maybe I check on the pricing of BGS as well. I don't think anybody else does large slabs except for PSA and BGS, right?
You could look
That's
at
probably the
CGC
two
if they
that,
do something, because they do comic books. I don't know if they would do photos, but
CGC.
CGC does comic books, don't they?
Right.
CGS?
Or CGS, yeah, CGS.
Yeah,
they were
think-
CGC at some point. weren't they?
CGS
Yeah.
is CGC, right?
Yeah, they
Isn't
are
it
the same, aren't
company?
they? I believe.
Or CSG.
Oh, yeah.
CSG
Whatever. Like,
is CGC. It's
yeah,
hard to
who
keep
knows?
track at this point. All these
either way,
acronyms.
they were at one point that, and like they're now whatever they are now, and who gives a shit? Yeah. But
I think a lot of the Type 1s are PSA for sure. So, if you're not going to get charged a whole ton, it makes sense, in my opinion, to go with them. Because if you were to sell down the line, I think people look more towards PSA for those. I've seen a lot of them in PSA, the Type 1 photos. I mean, Nat Turner especially posts a lot of his stuff. It's becoming a larger thing for like those type of collectors. So it is not too much money. Of course, if you're spending an arm and a leg to go to PSA, maybe it's not the best bet, but probably good to get it graded.
since these
regardless,
photos
right?
too, you never know. There might be other companies out there that we don't even know about because they just do photos. There could be that kind of thing, like was it JSA that just does autographs or something like that, in addition to like for autograph like authentication? Was it?
Yeah, but JSA doesn't slab. They don't
authenticate. Slab. You're right, but like maybe there's another company that does encapsulate photos that's like a JSA that we don't normally talk about because they do just photos or something like that. It could be out there.
I don't know what the cost of slabbing something like that is from PSA or BGS either. It's not something I've ever looked into personally. But yeah, get it slabbed from anywhere if you just want it slabbed and you just need protection. Get it slabbed from PSA if you want to resell. And yeah, but period, just get those slabbed. I'm not going to recommend getting things slabbed in most cases, but 8x10s, especially something of that value, like Type 1,
Same,
get those, definitely.
I mean, I think there's even
it's
throwing it into another like aspect. If it's like just something you want to put on your wall, there are certain ways of framing something that is almost the same as encapsulating into a slab. That if you just wanted it framed in a special kind of framing sense that removes all, whatever you need to remove to preserve the photo to make it not like fade or anything, putting it behind a certain kind of glass and everything. There are people out there that will frame stuff even in that sense. So with an 8x10 photo, you have a lot more options than you do with cards, where we're pretty much going with card graders of whatever that is, where an 8x10 photo, I feel like you could get it slabbed. Maybe there's another thing, or just finding a really good framer that knows how to make sure that photo is preserved.
He could do that. I feel like he might also want them authenticated as well as type 1 photos, like specifically. Yeah. So he might have to go for like a grading company for something like that. But hopefully we helped a little bit on some of your answer there. Yeah. Thank you for the comment. If you would like us to cover your comment on a future show, leave it in the comments or on one of our shorts, or Instagram, TikTok, YouTube, all the above. Just feel free. Leave it wherever. We find it. We see these comments. We laugh at the stupid ones. And the good ones, we save for later. So, yes. But thank you for watching. I think this was definitely a fun episode. It was a lot more upbeat than some of our previous ones where we had some drama. So, but hey, it's been cool. We talked a lot about 90s cards, a lot of basketball stuff.
A lot of fun stuff to talk about there, yeah.
Thank you, Brian, for being a new guest here on the channel. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, good time.
Oh, I was talking to Brian. Ryan.
Oh, yeah.
Okay. that was the joke, you guys.
Oh, you said Brian with a B.
Yeah. It seems like you're lagging a little bit behind here. It's okay. Thank you. We'd love to have you on as a host in future shows as well. Anything else to say to the people?
No. Go find some 90s cards.
Yeah. Go and find...
Go to your local card show. Dig through the $5 bins. The dollar bins.
Best, most fun place at a card show is the dollar bins.
Oh, yeah.
Confirmed.
I agree.
Thank you for watching, everyone. We will see you again in a future episode. Take care.
Later.